Okay, I would like to actually now be a little more positive with this particular video, seeing I posted a rather heavy, politically laced one last time on my YouTube channel. This time I'd like to do something optimistic and give a big shout out to a couple of my favourite TV shows that I haven't actually mentioned before. The first one that comes to mind is Scream Queens. It's a fantastic black satire on the horror genre, and I think it's brilliantly done. And the other one that I don't know how I've missed out on mentioning it is a classic that's probably into about 7th or 8th series now, I think, and that's Game of Thrones, which is, if you're not aware, is a phenomenally successful period adventure series, I guess you'd call it, and it's set in a mythical sort of middle-aged type kingdom, or number of kingdoms, and that's where the Game of Thrones takes place, because there's a number of kingdoms competing with one another, and that's basically the dynamic that's involved there. But has amazing scenery, incredible characters, brilliant writing, and a title sequence to die for. So those are two shows that I haven't actually mentioned before. So I'd just like to basically say, you know, how much I enjoy both of them, and they are from such disparate genres. The as I say, Scream Queens is really a laugh out loud comedy. I find it superb because it's, as I say, incredibly black. It doesn't hold back with the lines. It certainly takes the piss out of the shock horror type genre, aka Scream Queens. It's the perfect title for it because it's about a group of basic mean girls run by one particularly mean girl in a sorority house. That's where it begins, but it ends up somehow in a hospital. Don't ask me how, but in this bizarre sort of world that they've contrived, the second series is in a hospital, and these women who are basically just backstabbing bimbos are now in the medical profession. So that's very comforting for all of us who might have to go under a certain procedure to end up in a hospital run like that. Jamie Lee Curtis does a superb job as she was the head of the college when they were on campus, and now of course she worked her way into the hospital as well. So these girls can't get away from her clutches. And Jamie Lee's brilliant. She's aging really well, and her acting is getting better by the day. She's fantastic. The other standout, in my opinion, is Emma Roberts. I mean, she is such a talented Charles Bronson. That's who Eric Roberts reminds me of, that type of acting. They say he was an Oscar-nominated actor, which I found quite extraordinary, because from what I can recall, he basically just played the one role. I may be being unkind and unfair there, because I don't know about his total body of work. He might have done something totally out of character. I mean, it's Marion Michael Morrison, better known as John Wayne, made a film called The Quiet Man, where he played an Irishman, and it was against type. It wasn't his usual stick with the cowboy, with the 10-gallon hat. It was a totally different role. And, you know, Eric Roberts may well have done that type of role too, but I'm not aware of it, and that's why I'm even more staggered by how good his daughter is in this show. She plays the little entitled rich bitch beautifully. She's like a whiny control freak, and she does it really well. And I couldn't imagine anyone else playing the role as well. There's also Leah Michelle, who is from Glee, the long-running show Glee. She's also in this particular cast, and she does okay, as do the other girls who are under the evil control of Emma Robertson's character. They all do a good job, and added to the mix in the actual the second series, they've introduced Kirstie Alley into the mix, and of course Kirstie Alley's a pretty decent comedian. She's done quite a few roles now, and it's a very solid cast. They've also got the sort of the soap opera looking doctors like John Stamos, and he's well cast as well, and plays his role as straight as he possibly could given the circumstances. But the whole thing's very campy, very funny, very black, very well written, and a thoroughly enjoyable show that's held up for 2 seasons. Hopefully it'll keep the same quality happening for a 3rd season, if it gets greenlit, which I presume it will. And of course the other show is the long-running Game of Thrones. Interesting, I was actually a latecomer to that particular series. I did actually see an episode early on when it just started, but I was totally unimpressed, because what I saw was that it was actually the wall. So you've got this mountain of ice, had a little entranceway into where the night watchmen were guarding that particular frontier. Now, I had no idea about the characters or what was going on. All I saw was a lot of snow. And I thought, what the hell is this? And I basically was totally unimpressed. I only gave it about 5 or 10 minutes, and I thought, well, there didn't seem to be much character progression or development. I mean, how wrong was I? It just shows you that you do need to give certain series a bit of a go. With Game of Thrones after about the 3rd series, I think, and so I caught up with it fairly quickly. And of course, it's a wonderful experience for discovering a show you love, and then you've got all these episodes you haven't seen, and you can just watch them and binge on them for days on end to get up to speed with the latest episodes. And that's what I did with Game of Thrones, and I was knocked out by it. The first thing I noticed about it, and I didn't see this initially, I don't know, somehow I missed the credits when I first saw it, but they are unbelievable. They're probably I would say they are the most impressive credits I've ever seen for a show. The opening sequence is stunning with those graphics. It encapsulates the feel of the show. It looks visually stunning, absolutely superb. I hope they won an award for that title sequence, because they deserve to. So it sets the tone for the show straight away. And of course, it's an HBO program, so you've got the American money being poured into a primarily English-centric acting troupe, and it's the best of both worlds. So you've got an amazing artistic ensemble there, and you've got the money to back it up, and the expertise from the US, from a heavy-hitting cable network. So it had all the elements, and of course it was based on a book, which is also a good sign, because that means you've got plenty of meaty source material, and it does work, it gels. It doesn't hold back. There's plenty of violence, there's plenty of sex, it's gritty, it's plenty of political infighting, and of course the cast is superb. First off, a big shout out to a man of small stature, Peter Dinklage. I'm absolutely knocked out by this guy's acting ability. He, I mean, you know, a lesser actor, you would be concentrating on his physical features. I mean, given that he's basically a dwarf or a midget, I'm not sure what the technical term correct is, but he's basically certainly has stunted growth there, and when he walks, you know, it could easily be quite comical to look at, but he has such a screen presence. The man is an amazing actor, and you just listen to every word he says, and he's just, you know, he was just born to be to fill the screen. He's amazing, just screen presence personified. So without Peter Dinklage, they've knocked off major characters in this show, and that's one of the great pluses of this particular series, is they have been prepared to turf actors that you fell in love with, and you thought in a normal narrative they would never die. You know they'd never die because they're too important. They're pivotal characters. But in Game of Thrones, they're quite happy to bump off people you don't expect. People who you think are just basically sacred cows who are too important to the story and too much. You've got too much emotional baggage with them that the audience would kill you if you got rid of them. But they are being prepared to actually have a high attrition rate with actors who you actually do get emotionally involved with. And I think it's great because it just freshens up the whole thing. You don't know what's going to happen. It's not predictable, and it makes it a joyous experience watching the show. But apart from the fact that it's superbly written, it's just a joy to watch. The other actor in it, or actress in this case, Emilia Clarke, I find her fascinating in that if you saw Emilia Clarke in some other production, you'd think this woman is just a bit nerdy, a bit sort of a bit of a dork, to be honest with you. I mean, not unattractive, but dorkish. You know, she did a sitcom in the UK, which was reasonably successful, and it was okay, nothing spectacular, but it was fine. And she did come across as being quite dorky. For some reason, the director kept focusing on her manipulation of her eyebrows, which looked quite bizarre. She kept moving her eyebrows throughout the whole film, which I found quite distracting. But when she's been on the set of Game of Thrones, she basically just totally changes character and becomes Khaleesi, you know, the blonde goddess with dragons. It's just an amazing transformation, and she is absolutely brilliant in the show, and I would think probably the most pivotal female character in my opinion, anyway. So you know, you've got a combination of Dinklage and her, who actually don't play scenes together very often at all. They're in different story arcs, so they don't actually get to interact together that much. But they're both amazing presences in this particular show, and I would find it that if you lost either of them, it would be a big blow. But do not be surprised if they are written out at some stage. That's just the nature of the beast. Although I don't know how long the show can keep going. I mean, I think it's around 8 series already. I mean, it's had a very good run, and the quality doesn't seem to be dropping off because it can reinvent itself. But it has been a joy to watch up until now. And look, I've only mentioned 2 characters there, which is unfair because it is a star-studded cast. Well, at least it is now. Apparently, the actors were quite amazed at their notoriety. They went to a function in Hollywood, I think it was about 12 months after the show had been aired in the US, and they were stunned by the response that they received in the west coast of the US, because they had no idea they were that popular in America. I mean, I'm sure that they're all very aware of it now, but it's nice that they had that level of naivety, because I guess that they were doing their own projects in the UK when they weren't shooting in Spain for Game of Thrones, and I guess they were fairly isolated from it all in the early stages of the Game of Thrones franchise. But these days, I'm sure that everybody knows how big a show it is, and it's a phenomenon and an absolute. I'll miss it when it finishes, but there's plenty of shows to watch again and again and again, and that's the beauty of these sort of programs. There's such good quality that you can go back and watch them after a few years. I've done the same with things like The Sopranos. You can watch that again and again, and it's just a brilliant series. And that's the beauty of cable TV. They're producing some real quality product that will hold up over time. And you will be able to watch again and just enjoy it, because there's a lot of depth to these shows too. There's stuff I'm sure I've missed in Game of Thrones, because there's a lot of plot there, as well as fantastic characterisation. So that's my big shout outs. Those two shows, Scream Queens and Game of Thrones, have certainly enriched my viewing experience on the small screen. And really, they're giving filmmaking a run for its money. You rarely see that sort of quality of writing and acting on the big screen anymore, which is a shame. But the quality is so good on TV now that it's almost impossible to surpass it. So we live in blessed times, in my opinion.